Okay, so this is the day 3 for the mindfulness. We're going to start with the questions. So might give you less. I'll see how it goes. And during the talk as well, I'll probably go through some of these questions in a way to clarify a bit more what I'm trying to explain. Okay, so your first question is, what feels more real to you? That you are essentially a body with a spirit in it, or you are essentially spirit in a body. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope you can see the difference. This all depends on your reality. So the question is, what feels more real to you? You're a body with a spirit, or you're a spirit with a body? You can just write anything about that. Same as before, you don't have to write to me, but if you can write it to yourself, it's fine. But thank you for the answers, because I do read them, and now and then I send you some, my answers on your questions. The next question, number 2, it's about for example, when we meet people, we usually go into a comparison mode. Your position compared to that person, power or confidence. So the question is, who do you look up to? It's about the image that you have on yourself. So it's, as you're looking up, immediately like you can be the manager of your company. So when in their presence, you feel like, they're a little bit superior in that sense. So that's what I mean by who do you look up to in that sense. Not admire, but who is like maybe superior to you in that sense. It's just a way we see things. And question number 3 is, who do you look down to? So who do you look down to? Like my friend said, he looks down to stupid people. So it depends, and you might feel superior to some other people for some reason. So just write down your, how do you feel about that? All right, next question. What do you think is missing in your life? So what is missing in your life? Again, you don't have to answer to me, just for yourself. What do you think is missing in your life? Next one is, what does it feel like to be you? What does it feel like to be you? Especially if you get out of conditioning, then what does it feel like when there isn't much of a identity? So it's a feeling. So you don't have to write it first. It can be just, you just ask yourself, what does it feel like to be me? And then just meditate on that. And then later on, you can write down something. The next question is, what would happen if I really found peace? If you find a way of just being at peace 24 hours. So what would happen if I really found peace? What would be different, I guess? How would you live? Next question. Something that my Tai Chi teacher would say. It's part of the philosophy as well that I know from Tao. So the question is, the most difficult things to do are eating and sleeping. So that's what he would say, that the most difficult things to do in life is eating and sleeping. So the question is, well, if that's true, then why? Why is eating and sleeping the hardest things to do? Okay, the next one. What are you judging every day as insignificant, not important? So what are these insignificant moments? So what are you judging every day as insignificant? So it can be just putting your shoes on, as we said, laundry. Just you can check with your mind, those moments that you have where you've already judged certain moments and certain activities as insignificant, they're not important. And then just write them down. What are these moments? Maybe tonight you can write down what you thought it was not important today, and then tomorrow as well. All right, and the next one. Do I have to question all my thoughts? Do I have to question all my thoughts? If you remember last week, we had a question. For example, can thought be aware of itself? So if you remember that one, we're looking at your thinking process. Maybe you are aware of your thought or your emotion and you're angry, but you're aware of it afterwards, after you complained or you got angry or you had a negative thought. The awareness comes after. That's fine. And now so then some students are asking, well, does it mean that I have to question all my thoughts? We talked about in the past as well in our classes, not to take your thoughts so seriously. Yeah, it's just a thought. So that's what I mean. So in this case, just look at the question Do I have to question all my thoughts? Do I want to question all my thoughts? It's the same question, but I'm just going to give you some other options so you can write down. So you can write down, do I have to question all my thoughts? And then write down, do I want to? And the next line is part of the same question, if it helps. Is it possible to be in awareness before having to question my thoughts? Is it possible to be in awareness before having to question my thoughts? And see if that makes any sense. Like everything, don't try to answer straight away and, you answer each question in 1 minute. I want you to spend some time just, you could spend a whole few hours just working on one question, and then you can write it down later or tomorrow or the next day. Okay, and then last week, if you remember, we had a question, do numbers really exist? Do we create numbers? Yeah. So that was last week's question. I think it was last week. Do numbers really exist? So today I'm going to ask a different question. This is the last one. It should be maybe number 10 or 9. And this one is, do questions really exist? Do questions really exist? All right, so we are making this a workshop because it's for you to get involved. And so if you can answer the questions, it would be great. But also for you to comment anything now is fine. You can unmute and just, if you have a comment on these questions or you'd like to say something about these questions, please do so, because we put in this time for you to talk as well. All right, so I'll carry on with this idea. I sent this link to you, I think, way before, because I wanted you to have time to watch it. And it was one about the Shaolin monk, but it's in German. And there's subtitles, but it's the Shaolin monk in Germany. So they have a center in Germany. And he's talking about, if you remember, your center, and which is in Buddhism, we talk about the dot or the center of the wheel, and then you have the actual wheel. So you have the hub. The center doesn't move, but the outside of the wheel moves. So then take that as thinking about yourself. You have a center which is still, it doesn't move. So, and then you have a part of you that moves. So, but the center comes first is important. So you have the center that doesn't move, and then you have the wheel around. So you have stillness. You have that calmness and stillness within you. And the whole purpose of meditation or mindfulness is to become aware of that center in you that is very still. So that represents the dot. And then from the dot, you can see the dot is not going anywhere, it's just a dot. So are you able to stay in a place where you don't go anywhere? And then for you to notice when you start to move. which is when you start to spiral out of that circle, out of that dot. With a pen, you start to spiral out. So now this is what we call your ego, your identity. You're starting to create some kind of movement. So you could ask yourself, am I still right now, or am I moving? It's another way of putting a question, that I've asked, a question that I mentioned many times before about looking at your thoughts, looking at the gate where your thoughts are coming from. So it's almost like there is a gate or portal, some kind of gate where you want to look and observe, and your thoughts come from there. So just don't lose your focus. So another way would be to, just ask yourself during the day, am I moving right now, or am I still? So I'm not talking about movement as the physical, but mentally. I don't know if you remember that video. Yeah. So if you don't, just let me know. I'll send it back to you. So when you are not in your center, then you are in movement. When there is movement, then there is always something that has to return to its original place, center. Yeah. So what returns? So if you're moving, eventually something has to return. And we know that only in stillness, nothing returns. Does that make sense? So if you are still, then nothing returns because you're already there. There's nowhere to go. So in the Tai Chi, fighting is the same. If you can be totally present and you're being pushed around, like we talked about in pushing hands, every time someone is trying to push you, you're trying to quickly come back to your center. But if you're already in your center, there's nothing faster than that. You're already in your center, so then no one can actually move you. So that's quite interesting to practice physically with martial arts, is to be in your center all the time. So you're already there. There's nothing faster than being already there. So Tai Chi is the only thing that has this incredible exercise that you can do, which is pushing hands and try to be still. So the whole purpose of standing like this in Zhong, that you do it in the end of our classes, is to make sure that you return and you're not moving. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to achieve. It's not an exercise to see how long you can stay there, because then the mind is pretending to be still. That's not it. It's you're really returning home. You're going back to that stillness. So that's why we practice that exercise. So I want you to think about this. For example, you could see it almost like a child, a story for kids, for the child. Think about the ocean and the wind. The ocean and the wind, just imagine they are the best friends. They're always together. All the different patterns we see in the ocean, the different waves and what happens in the ocean, it's all created, let's say, by the ocean and the wind. So they're always together. And just imagine, if you're looking at this as a story, you could say that the ocean and the wind almost don't really know who they are separate, because they've been together for such a long time. But it comes a point where the ocean says to the wind, look, I like all these different waves that we are making, but I also like the stillness and the calm ocean, where you can see the reflection of the moon. You can see the fish really nice and still. So the ocean is saying, oh, this is really nice. Let's do that as well, and maybe more of it. If the wind could speak, The wind is thinking, well, yeah, that is nice, but you could say that the wind doesn't know how to do it, because maybe you could say that whenever the ocean is calm, you could say maybe the wind was drunk or asleep or something, but the wind cannot recollect how to calm the ocean. And the reason is because, of course, the wind, is movement. So for us to have a very calm ocean, it means that something has to happen. The wind has to die. And then you have a calm ocean. So unfortunately, the wind cannot take part. They can't play together again, the wind and the ocean, because it's okay for waves. But to have a very calm ocean, the wind has to really stop existence. So in Buddhism and in Zen as well, we have this idea that the ocean is basically a thinking process. So your thinking are the ripples and the waves in consciousness in who you really are. So who you really are is this very calm ocean. But when you think, you're creating this turbulence and these ripples and these waves. So the thoughts is disturbing the ocean, just like the wind is disturbing. The thoughts are disturbing your consciousness, just like the wind is disturbing the ocean. So that's something that you would have read many times. And it's important to say that because if you're thinking about yourself now, if you're thinking, oh yes, our life, the most important thing to me is to be still and to be able to be calm and stop thinking. Well, that's impossible because the mind is saying that. Yeah, it's like the ocean saying, I want to be really still. So it can't be done. So really, now we say the ocean has to die, but it's not really the right word. Just like, your thoughts have to die. Well, it's not quite. It's usually the word death means that you cannot come back. Yeah, if something dies, it dies for good in a sense. In this earth we die, or something dies, it doesn't return in that sense. So the wind can come and it can go. Yeah. So with your thoughts is the same. You will eventually, if you haven't already, of course, it depends on your levels, you're all different. You will find that what happened to me was that I had that experience where I managed to get rid of the mind somehow. I can't tell you how I did it. It's just that because the mind can't tell you, but the mind just goes. And it comes back again later on, of course. But you can actually make your mind go, in a sense. And I think we talked about it also with the archery. Every time I'm, preparing for the nationals, and then I go and shoot at the nationals, I just have to, of course, the whole purpose of the competition is to make your mind go. So there is no mind as you are performing. So that's when you're in the zone. Yeah. And I can't tell you how to do it, unfortunately. I wish I could, but it's just all I can do is point in that direction. And you might have a clue, certain things I'm telling you, and you'll figure it out. So when the mind, of course, if the mind says, yes, I want to be nice and still, I don't want to think. Okay, that's fine. This is your ego talking. Your identity says, yes, I want to be very still and not think and live without thinking. That would be really good. But of course, when that actually happens, then your ego can enjoy it, you could say, because your ego is not there. So you're dreaming for this big thing to become enlightened, and then when you become enlightened, you're not there when it happens. It's kind of silly, but that's what happens. You're dreaming all his life about achieving a certain thing, like I did, trying to win the gold medal and shooting a perfect 10. And when I did it, um, it is a beautiful experience, but you can't talk about it and you can't enjoy it in that sense. It's not negative, it's just that it's very different. So you need to create, I would say, you need to create an environment. If you really want to think less and try to be more present, you have to create an environment that, let's say, attracts that. Yeah. So, for example, I mentioned this to you. In my garden, I wanted to create a Zen garden where I had dragonflies because I love the dragonflies. So I wanted some dragonflies. So you read about it, and then you learn that you have to have water, and you have to have like bamboo and stuff like that. And you just start to read the kind of plants, and you create an environment that will attract the dragonflies. So this is the same. If you are looking for example, self-realization, enlightenment, or just being totally present 24 hours, you have to create an environment that will bring that out in you. So, for example, the opposite would be, you may be listening to some loud music or, noise or the news maybe, or you're doing something that is not going to really invite the kind of presence that you want. Yeah, so that's why we have in monasteries and temples. You have the burning of the candle, the incense. You have maybe some bonsai trees around you. You try to create something that will no paintings around you. So it's less distracting for the mind to look for temporary satisfaction all the time and looking for things. So then your mind will kind of stop a bit, and then you have a chance. So, but you have to create it in a sense. That's a way of putting it. It doesn't have to be that way. You can wake up. Let's say you can be suffering completely and not doing any spiritual work, and that's what happened to Eckhart Tolle, which is I think I mentioned last time. He was not interested in anything spiritual, and what he wanted was many times thinking about committing suicide. So, because of so much suffering, he realized he could not live with himself anymore. And then he realized what he just said in his mind: I cannot live with myself. So he realized me and myself sounds like this too. There is a real you, and there is a conditioning, a negative talk. And he just woke up in that sense. So you can do it through a spiritual path, or you can just suddenly, be suffering so much and you wake up. So that's another way. So we're trying to do something a bit more gentle. You don't have to suffer that much. So in Tai Chi, the purpose of Tai Chi and meditation is for you to be more present and loving what you're doing rather than you wanting to commit suicide or hate everything. Is to see the love in everything. Yeah. So every day it will depend on what are the books that you're reading, what are the programs that you're watching. And that's how we talked about Confucius, before, about see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Yeah, so those things will determine your state of consciousness in a way, or your state of presence. Do you have any questions or anything you want to ask me? Just go ahead.
I have a question, Bruno. In Zhangzhong, if we're finding our center, then why do we not have our hands even away from the body, but down towards the dantian? Why is there that seeming separation from the center?
Yeah, so the Zhangzhong, if you remember, there's different postures for your hands. So some of them can be down, some of them can be quite high. The reason why we have it in this position is also because it's related to martial arts. So that has to do with the grasp, bird's tail, press. So it's a position that you want to feel very relaxed. So when it comes to the martial arts a bit more, it's a really good position to be standing in. In the Bagua, we do it like this. Remember, when you have one hand in front. So that is, you stand there for a long time. Same thing, you're strengthening yourself in a very still position. But we also do it with the hands on your belly and doing the dantian. The thing is that the center is not actually in the center of your body. Yeah, so you have to see your center as it's a symbol of, where is your center. But of course, yes, and in martial arts, we said when you learn in martial arts, if you remember, what are you defending? You're fighting and defending. So what are you defending? You're defending yourself. We said no. Really, what you're defending is you're defending your balance. So you need to be in a physically balanced, so no one can push you and you don't trip and fall down. So you're defending your balance all the time. So that is another way of being still. So when you're walking, you're actually still and you're being balanced. When you're picking up something from the floor or something from the top, whatever you're doing, you're always defending your balance. Otherwise, you fall down and hurt yourself. So the enemy is not the other person. The Grand Master of Chen Tai Chi says, the enemy is the slippery floor. Whatever is happening around you, are you always aware of your balance and your centering? If you are, then even if you've got weak legs, and it doesn't matter. If you bring your attention to your center and your balance, that's all we can do because we have this physical body. So that's how it works with the gravity and so on. So martial arts is great because it's a test of someone pulling and pushing you. So. Anything else? So we have only a minute. So again, as usual, I'll lose you. So I'll just send you another link, which will be just for a quick, if you have a question or not. And then we're going to go straight into doing the shibashi after we come back. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, Bruno. Will you be sending a recording of this talk so I can listen again?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, if it works and I manage to do it again, yes.
Okay, good.